The stars had always called to humanity. For 300 years, they had answered that call. They built ships, they found new worlds, they spread across 12 planets. Within 100 light years of Earth, they thought they were alone in the universe. They were wrong. The Galactic Empire had ruled the galaxy for 12,000 years. They controlled over 40,000 star systems. 4,000 different species served under their rule. Some had joined willingly. Most had not. There were tall beings with gray skin and 4 arms. Their eyes were black as the void between stars. They had never lost a war. They had never needed to. High Arbiter stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. 200 warships followed behind him. Each one was larger than anything humanity had ever built. He looked at the small blue planet on his Earth, home of the species called humans. Such a small world, said. His voice was cold like ice. They have only 12 colonies. They have been in space for barely 3 centuries. This will not take long. His second officer, a younger named X, checked his instruments. They have approximately 40 warships in their fleet. High Orbiter, most are stationed around the 3rd planet, made a sound that might have been a laugh. 40 ships. We bring 200. This is not a war. This is a formality. They had done this many times before. They would arrive at a new species. They would deliver the integration decree. The new species would surrender. They would give up their weapons. They would serve the Empire. This was how things worked. This was how things had always worked. Ambassador prepared her speech. She was skilled at this task. She had delivered the integration decree to 17 species before. All of them had submitted. Some had cried, some had begged, some had tried to fight. It did not matter. The result was always the same. On Earth, the United Terran Council gathered in an emergency session. Presidents, prime ministers, and generals sat in a massive underground chamber. Fear filled the room like a thick fog. The alien fleet had appeared without warning. It was larger than anything humanity had ever seen. Fleet Admiral sat quietly in the corner. He was 62 years old. His hair was gray. His face was calm. He had served in the Terran Navy for 40 years. He had seen things that would make most people scream. He did not scream. He listened. The hologram of Ambassador appeared in the center of the room. She was beautiful in a strange cold way. Her 4 arms were folded across her chest. Her black eyes showed no emotion. People of Earth, she began, I am of the Galactic Empire. I bring you a great honor. The Empire has chosen to integrate your species into our civilization. The council members looked at each other. Some dared to hope. Perhaps this was good news. Perhaps the aliens came in peace. Continued, you will surrender all weapons. You will disband your military forces. You will accept governors on all your worlds. Your people will serve the Empire in whatever capacity we require. In return, you will receive the protection of our fleet. The hope in the room died instantly. This is not a request, said her voice. Was flat bored. Even 4,000 species have accepted this decree. Those who refused were corrected. You have seen our fleet. You know you cannot win. Surrender is your only logical choice. President William stood up. Her hands were shaking. And if we refuse, tilted her head slightly, then your cities will burn. Your colonies will fall. Your species will be reduced to a manageable number. The The survivors will serve anyway, but under much harsher conditions. The choice is yours, but only one choice leads to your survival. The room exploded into chaos. Some council members shouted in anger, others wept. A few simply stared at nothing, their minds unable to process what was happening. Admiral raised his hand. The room slowly went quiet. Ambassador, he said. His voice was steady. We need time to discuss this among ourselves. Please give us 72 hours to prepare our response. Looked at the old human. She found his calmness strange. Most species panicked when faced with the decree. This one seemed almost relaxed. 72 hours, she agreed. Use them wisely. I expect you will see reason. They always do. The hologram disappeared. The council members began talking all at once. Some wanted to surrender immediately. They argued that survival was more important than pride. Others wanted to fight even if it meant death. They said humanity should not kneel to anyone. Admiral stood up and walked toward the door. Admiral President Williams called out, "Where are you going? We need to discuss this." Turned around. His eyes were hard like steel. "There is nothing to discuss, Madame President. I know what humanity's answer will be. I'm going to prepare it." He left the room before anyone could respond. Deep beneath the surface of Mars, there was a facility that did not exist on any map. Admiral arrived there 3 hours later. He walked through endless corridors until he reached a massive door marked with a single word: Prometheus. He placed his hand on the scanner. The door opened. Inside was a control room filled with screens and instruments. A young officer jumped to attention when she saw the Admiral enter. "Sir, we were not expecting you." "Walk to the main console, Lieutenant. Activate protocol. Prometheus, authorization code Alpha 779. Humanity remembers." The lieutenant's face went pale. She had trained for this moment. She had hoped it would never come. "Sir, are you certain?" "Do it." She entered the commands across human space. Encrypted messages began to fly. They reached hidden bases in asteroid belts. They reached secret shipyards on frozen moons. They reached facilities buried deep inside gas giants, and everywhere they reached, something woke up. Admiral looked at the screens as they lit up one by one. Each light represented a ship. Not the 40 ships the aliens knew about. Thousands of ships, ships that had been built in secret for 80 years, ships that humanity had prayed would never be needed. "The think they know us," said quietly. "They think we are just another weak species waiting to be conquered. They have made a terrible mistake." He watched as the numbers climbed higher and higher. They have forgotten something important. Humans do not kneel. We never have. We never will. Somewhere in the darkness of space, the Tan fleet was waking up, and the galaxy would never be the same. 80 years ago, humanity learned the truth about the universe. They learned it the hard way. They came without warning. They were insect-like creatures with no interest in peace or trade. They wanted only one thing: food, and to them humans were food. 3 colony worlds burned in a single week. Millions died. Earth's small defense fleet fought bravely, but they were hopelessly outmatched. The ships were faster, stronger, and more numerous. Then something strange happened. The simply left. No one knew why. Perhaps they found easier prey somewhere else. Perhaps they grew bored. It did not matter. What mattered was that humanity survived. But humanity also learned a lesson that day, a lesson written in blood and fire. The universe was not friendly. The universe was dark and dangerous and full of things that wanted to kill them. They could never be weak again. The governments of Earth met in secret. For the first time in human history, they all agreed on something. They would prepare, they would build, they would hide their true strength until the day they needed it, and so protocol. Prometheus was born. Captain sat in her quarters aboard the TSS Defiance. The ship was officially listed as decommissioned in all Terran Navy records. In reality, it was one of 4,000 warships hidden throughout human space. She held an old photograph in her hands. It showed a young woman standing in front of a burning building. That woman was her grandmother. The building had been her home on New Helsinki before the came. You always told me this day would come, grandmother whispered. You were right. Her communicator beeped. The message was simple: Prometheus active. Prepare for deployment. Had trained her entire life for this moment. Every drill, every simulation, every sleepless night had led to this point. She put the photograph in her pocket and walked to the bridge. Her crew was already at their stations. They were young, but their eyes were hard. They knew what was coming. They were ready. All hands announced over the ship speakers. This is Captain Protocol. Prometheus is active. We have trained for this. We have prepared for this. Today we show the galaxy what happens when you threaten our home. Battle stations. The ship hummed with energy as systems came online. Weapons charged, shields powered up. The Defiance was ready for war across human space. Thousands of similar scenes played out. Ships that had been sleeping in the darkness for decades came alive. Crews who had spent years waiting in secret bases finally had a purpose in the Sol system. High Arbiter was growing impatient. The 72 hours were almost over. He expected the humans to surrender at any moment. Sir, Officer X reported, our sensors are detecting unusual energy signatures throughout the system. Waved his hand dismissively. Probably they're primitive power plants. These species always make noise when they are scared, sir. The signatures are increasing and they appear to be coming from everywhere. For the first time, felt a small flicker of concern. He pushed it aside. Humans had 40 ships. Even if they had a few more hidden somewhere, it would not matter. His fleet was invincible. Ambassador contacted him from the diplomatic vessel. High Arbiter, the humans are sending a transmission. They say they have prepared their response. Finally said, put it through. Let us hear their surrender. Admiral's face appeared on the screen. He looked the same as before, calm, steady, unafraid. Behind him could see a massive command center filled with activity. High Arbiter began, on behalf of the United Terran Council, I am authorized to deliver humanity's response to your integration decree. Smiled, I am pleased you have seen reason. Surrender is the only we decline. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Stared at the screen in disbelief. I'm sorry, he said slowly. What did you say? I said we decline. Humanity will not surrender. We will not disarm. We will not serve your empire. We are a free people and we will remain free. Expression darkened. Admiral, you have 40 ships. We have 200. You cannot possibly 200 ships. Smiled. It was not a friendly smile. Let me show you something. High Arbiter pressed a button on his console. All around the fleet space itself seemed to tear open. Thousands of ships emerged from hidden docks, from hollow asteroids, from beneath the ice of frozen moons. They were black as the void, with running lights that glowed angry red. X stared at his instruments. His hands were shaking. High Arbiter, I am counting over 4,000 ships. The blood drained from face. 4,000 ships. The humans had 4,000 ships. It was impossible. It was unthinkable. And yet there they were. Howl whispered, "How did you hide this from us?" Admiral leaned forward. His eyes were cold as winter. "Because we knew you would come. Maybe not you specifically, but someone like you. The universe is full of empires that think they can take whatever they want. We learned that lesson 80 years ago. We decided we would never learn it again." The transmission ended. Ambassador's voice came through, trembling for the first time in her long career. "Hi, Arbiter, what do we do?" Straightened his spine. He was his people had conquered the galaxy. They had never retreated. They would not start now. "We attack," he said. "They may have more ships, but we have superior technology. We have 12,000 years of warfare experience. These humans are still primitives. We will crush them." He gave the order. The fleet moved forward. On the bridge of the Defiance, Captain watched the enemy approach. She thought of her grandmother. She thought of the 3 million people who died in the incursion. She thought of every human who had worked in secret for 80 years to prepare for this moment. "All ships." Admiral's voice came through the fleet-wide channel. "This is Fleet Admiral. The enemy has chosen war. Let us teach them what that word really means." All ships engage. The Terran fleet surged forward like a wave of darkness. Captain gripped her command chair. "Helm, take us in." "Weapons." "Officer, target the nearest enemy cruiser. Let's show these four-armed bastards how humans fight." The Defiance leaped into battle, and the first shots of humanity's greatest war began to fly. In that moment, the galaxy changed forever. They had faced 4,000 species. They had never been afraid. They were about to learn fear. The space between Mars and Jupiter became a graveyard. High Arbiter watched in horror as his fleet fell apart. His ships were dying. His warriors were screaming. And the humans just kept coming. "This is impossible," he whispered. "This is impossible." They had expected a battle. What they got was a nightmare. For 12,000 years, they had fought wars according to strict rules. Their ships would line up in formation. They would exchange fire at proper distances. The stronger fleet would win. It was clean. It was honorable. It was predictable. Humans did not fight that way. The first wave of tan ships did not even try to shoot at them. Instead, they simply flew straight into them. Thought they were running away at first. Then he realized the truth. They were ramming his ships on purpose. "They're insane," X shouted. "They're killing themselves just to hurt us." But they were not killing themselves. The ramming ships were drones, unmanned vessels controlled from far away. Each one was packed with explosives. Each one was aimed at an engine or weapon system. Each one was a flying bomb. Hundreds of drones hit the fleet in the first minute alone. Shields meant nothing. Armor meant nothing. The drones simply crashed through and exploded. Captain led her squadron around the edges of the battle. Her ships were smaller and faster than the cruisers. They moved like wolves hunting deer. Target their flagship, she ordered. Aim for the engines, if we can stop that ship. We stopped their command structure. The Defiance and its sister ships dove toward the Eternal Dominion. Weapons tried to track them, but the human ships were too quick. They jinxed and dodged, moving in patterns that seemed random, but were carefully planned. Fire shouted. A dozen missiles slammed into the flagship's rear section. The great ship shuddered, its engines flickered. Direct hit, the weapons officer cheered. Their main engines are down to 40%. But they were not helpless. They had 12,000 years of experience, and they learned fast. A destroyer managed to get a lock on the Defiance. Its main cannon fired. The shot hit the Defiance hard. The whole ship rocked. Sparks flew from broken consoles. 2 crew members were thrown from their seats. Damage report demanded. Hull breach on Deck 7. Shields at 30%. We've lost the port weapons. Array gritted her teeth. Can we still fight? Yes, ma'am. Then we keep fighting. Get us back into formation. The battle raged on. They had better technology and bigger ships. The humans had numbers and something else. Something they did not understand. Desperation, creativity, the willingness to do absolutely anything to win. Admiral watched the battle from his command ship, the TSS Vengeance. He saw what they could not see, the patterns, the flow, the opportunities. Deploy the gravity mines, he ordered. Sector 7, deep in space, invisible bombs. Activated. They did not explode. They did something worse. They created tiny points of super strong gravity, not strong enough to destroy a ship, but strong enough to pull it off course. 3 battleships tried to retreat. Through Sector 7, they hit the gravity mines. Their paths bent wildly. 2 of them crashed into each other. The third spun helplessly until a tearing cruiser finished it off. They're using gravity as a weapon, X reported too. We've never seen anything like this. Said nothing. His face was pale. His hands were shaking. This was not a battle. This was a massacre, but the humans were not finished. They had one more weapon. The of all, sir, a communications officer said. We're receiving a transmission on open channels. It's coming from everywhere. What is it? The officer's face went white. It's the sound of our crews dying, sir. They're recording our death screams and broadcasting them back to us. The bridge went silent. Through the speakers they could hear the voices of their own people crying out in terror and pain. The humans were using their fear against them. Turn it off, screamed. Turn it off. But the damage was done. Throughout the fleet, morale collapsed. Warriors who had never known fear suddenly understood it. The humans were not just killing them. The humans were breaking them. On the Defiance, Captain heard the broadcasts too. She felt sick. She knew it was necessary, but she hated it anyway. War is not pretty, she whispered to herself. Grandmother, you were right about that. 2. The battle lasted 4 hours. It felt like 4 years. When it was over, the fleet was broken. Of 200 warships, only 31 survived. They were fleeing toward the edge of the solar system. Engines burning at maximum power. The Terran fleet had lost 847 ships, almost a quarter of their force. Thousands of humans had died, but they had won. Admiral looked at the survivors. Damaged ships limped through fields of debris. Rescue vessels searched for escape pods. The void was filled with wreckage and human alike. Sir, his communications officer said, The enemy survivors are in full retreat. Should we let them go? Thought about it, the smart thing would be to let them run. The war was won. Earth was safe. There was no need for more death. But then he thought about something else. He thought about what would happen if they returned with a bigger fleet. He thought about all the other species the Empire had conquered. He thought about the message that needed to be sent. No, he said quietly, we do not let them go, we follow them. The bridge crew stared at him in shock. Sir, the communications officer asked, you heard me? Signal all ships capable of pursuit. We're going after them. We're going to follow them all the way back to their empire if we have to. His voice was hard as iron. The galaxy needs to learn something today. When you threaten Earth, we don't just defend ourselves. We make sure you never threaten us again. He opened a channel to the entire fleet. All ships, this is Admiral. The enemy is running. I want every ship that can still fly to pursue. We're taking this war to their doorstep. We're going to show them and every other species watching what happens when you try to enslave humanity. 1,000 voices answered, yes, sir. The Terran fleet turned toward the stars. Behind them, Earth was safe. Ahead of them, an empire waited. Captain looked at the fleeing ships. She thought about her grandmother's photo still in her pocket. This is for everyone you've ever hurt, she said softly. Every species you've enslaved, every world you've burned. The hunt begins now. Defiance jumped to hyperspace, following the enemy into the darkness. The battle of Saul was over. The war had just begun. The chase lasted 6 months. 6 months of blood and fire across 3,000 light years of space. The surviving ships fled toward the heart of their empire. They sent desperate messages ahead, warnings, pleas for help, descriptions of the nightmare that was following them. The Terran fleet followed. They did not stop. They did not slow down. They pursued their enemy like wolves chasing wounded prey. Word spread through the empire like wildfire. At first, no one believed it. A primitive species from the edge of known space chasing Imperial warships. Impossible. That had ruled for 12,000 years. Nothing could threaten them. Then the reports kept coming and they got worse. High Arbiter led his 31 surviving ships from system to system, hopping to find reinforcements. Instead, he found more humans. The Terran fleet had split into smaller groups. They attacked supply stations. They destroyed communication relays. They raided weapons factories. Everywhere went he found burning ruins and the wreckage of Imperial ships. How are they doing this? He demanded. How do they know where to strike? The answer was simple. The humans were learning. Every battle taught them more about the Empire. Every captured computer gave them more information. Every freed prisoner told them more secrets, and there were many prisoners to free. Captain led her squadron to a mining colony on a cold moon called 3. The colony was run by but the workers were not. They were small, gentle beings with blue skin and large eyes. They had been slaves of the Empire for 2,000 years. Captain, her first officer, reported, we've secured the facility. The overseers have surrendered, but they're terrified of us. Walked through the mining tunnels. She saw the huddled against the walls, shaking with fear. They expected the humans to be just like their old masters. They expected cruelty. Instead, knelt down beside an elderly. She smiled gently. You're free now, she said. The cannot hurt you anymore. We're taking you home." The old stared at her with wide, wet eyes. Free, the word seemed strange to him. Foreign, we do not understand. No one has ever. Why would you help us? Thought about her grandmother's photograph. She thought about the incursion. She thought about what it meant to be human, because no one should be a slave, she said simply, because someone should have helped us when we needed it. No one did, so we decided to be different. The story of three spread quickly. Other slave species heard about the humans who freed prisoners instead of killing them. They heard about the strange warriors who fought against the empire, not for conquest but for freedom, and they began to hope. On a dozen worlds, slave revolts began. Prisoners turned against their masters. Some revolts succeeded, others failed. But all of them weakened the empire, and all of them helped the advancing Terran fleet. Officer X was captured during a battle near the gas giant 7. His ship was destroyed. His crew was dead. He expected to be tortured, killed, or both. Instead, the humans brought him to Admiral. The old human admiral sat across from X in a small room. There were no chains, no torture devices, just two beings talking. "You must be wondering why you're still alive," said X. Nodded slowly. "Your species is full of surprises. I expected death. Death is easy. Understanding is harder." Leaned forward. "I want to know something, Officer X. In 12,000 years, has any species ever fought back the way we have?" X was silent for a long moment. "No," he finally admitted. "Many have fought, all have lost, but none have. None have done what you are doing. None have chased us into our own territory. None have freed our slaves. None have." He struggled to find the words. "None have scared us." Nodded. "Do you know why we fight so hard? Because you hate us?" No. Shook his head. "Hate is not enough to explain what we do. We fight hard because we remember what it feels like to be powerless. 80 years ago, a species called the attacked us. They killed millions of our people. We could not stop them. They left because they chose to leave, not because we made them." X listened carefully. "That feeling, that helplessness, we never forgot it." Continued. "We never could, so we swore it would never happen again. We built our hidden fleet. We trained our soldiers. We prepared for the day when someone would come to take our freedom. And when we came, you reminded us of our worst nightmare, and you woke up something inside us, something that had been waiting for 80 years. Eyes were hard but not cruel. We are not monsters, Officer X, but we will not be victims. Not ever again." X understood. Then they humans were not brave because they were fearless. They were brave because they were full of fear, and they had learned to use that fear as fuel. "What will happen to me?" X asked. "You will stay with us as a prisoner. When the war is over, you will be released. We do not kill those who surrender. That is not who we are." X stared at the human admiral. "In 12,000 years, no enemy of the Empire had ever shown such mercy." "You are a strange people," he said. "Yes," agreed. "We are." 6 months after the Battle of Sol, the Terran fleet reached the edge of the home system. They were not alone. Behind them came ships from 12 different species, others whose names humans could barely pronounce. All of them had been slaves. All of them had been freed. All of them wanted revenge. The coalition fleet numbered over 3,000 ships, not as many as the humans alone, but enough to matter, enough to send a message. On the Emperor the Eternal received the news. He was ancient, over 400 years old, and he had never known defeat. His advisors gathered around him, terrified. The humans are here. One of them said, they have brought allies. They demand an audience. Emperor rose from his throne. He was tall and terrible, with golden eyes and skin like polished stone. Demand, he repeated. Primitives demand nothing from me. Call the Imperial fleet, all of it. We will crush these insects once and for all, Your Majesty. The Imperial fleet is already gathering 10,000 ships, the largest force in our history. Smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. Good, let the humans come. Let them see the true power of the Empire. Let them learn what happens when insects challenge gods. Across the void, Admiral looked at the enemy. He knew what was coming, the final battle, the moment of truth. All ships, he announced, this is it. Everything we fought for comes down to this. They think they're gods. Let's remind them that gods can fall. The fleet began its final advance. Captain touched her grandmother's photograph. One last time. Almost there, she whispered. Almost there. The sky above the field, with ships, 10,000 Imperial warships, formed a defensive sphere around there. It was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. Every ship, every soldier, every weapon the Empire could gather had been brought here for one purpose: to destroy the human threat once and for all. Against them stood the Terran fleet and their allies, 3,000 human ships, 1,000 more from the liberated species. Together they were outnumbered more than 2 to 1. Emperor stood in his palace and watched the enemy approach. He felt no fear. He had lived for 4 centuries. He had crushed rebellions, conquered worlds, and broken the spirit of countless species. These humans would be no different. They are insects, he declared to his generals. Clever insects, perhaps, but insects all the same. Today, we remind the galaxy why the rule. Admiral opened a communication channel to the enemy fleet. His face appeared on screens across the command structure. Emperor began, I am Fleet Admiral of the Terran Alliance. Before this battle begins, I want you to understand something important. Laughed. You wish to surrender? Very well. I might consider showing mercy if we do not seek your destruction. Silence fell across both fleets. Even the Terran captains were surprised. Humanity has traveled 3,000 light years to reach your continued. We have fought dozens of battles. We have freed millions of slaves. We have proven that we can hurt you, that we can bleed you, that we can make you feel fear. Smile faded. But that is not why we came. We did not cross the galaxy for revenge. We did not build our fleet for conquest. Paused. We came to deliver message. What message? Demanded recognition. We want to be recognized as equals, not subjects, not tributaries, not slaves, partners. His voice was calm but firm. Give us a seat at the galactic table. Acknowledge our right to exist as a free people. Do this and we will leave in peace. We will even help you rebuild what we have broken. Stared at the human admiral. In 400 years, no one had ever made such a demand. The idea was absurd, impossible, insulting. You come to me with a fleet of warships, the Emperor hissed, and you ask for partnership. You have killed millions of my people. You have destroyed my ships. You have freed my slaves, and you want equality. Yes, then you are fools. Golden eyes blazed with hatred. The do not share power. We do not bow to primitives. We rule. That is what we have always done. That is what we will always do. He raised his hand. All ships attack. Leave. None alive. The Imperial fleet surged forward. The battle was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Stars were used as weapons. Ships flew into the sun's corona to escape pursuit, then emerged burning but alive. Moons were shattered by concentrated fire. The void itself seemed to catch fire as thousands of ships fought and died. They had numbers and technology. The humans had desperation and creativity. The battle seesawed back and forth, neither side able to gain a clear advantage. Captain led her squadron into the heart of the enemy fleet. The Defiance was badly damaged now. Half its weapons were gone. Its shields flickered constantly, but it kept fighting. Captain, her first officer, reported, "We're detecting a weakness in the palace shields. If we could hit it directly, how close would we need to get? Very close. Too close. We'd have to crash through the outer shield layer." Looked at her crew. They were tired, wounded and scared, but when she looked in their eyes, she saw something else. Determination. "All hands," she announced, "prepare for boarding action. We're going to pay the Emperor a personal visit." The Defiance dove toward the palace. Enemy ships tried to stop it, but the Tan cruiser was too fast, too determined. It hit the outer shield layer at full speed. Metal screamed. Systems exploded. The ship broke through. What was left of the Defiance crashed into the palace landing platform. It was not a graceful landing, but it was a landing. Let her surviving crew through the wreckage. They fought through palace guards, through corridors of gold and crystal, through chambers that had not seen violence in 10,000 years. Finally, they reached the throne room. Emperor stood alone. His guards had fled or died. His generals had abandoned him. He held an ancient sword in his hands, weapon from a time when the still fought their own battles. So he said, "The insects have come to kill me." Raised her rifle. Her finger rested on the trigger. One shot and it would all be over. One shot and the Empire would fall. She thought about her grandmother. She thought about the 3 million dead on New Helsinki. She thought about the slaves in the mines, the children crying in the darkness, the countless species crushed under imperial rule. One shot. She lowered her rifle. "No," she said, blinked to watch, took a step forward. She put her rifle on the ground, then she extended her hand. "Your empire can end today," she said, "or it can change. You can die here alone and hated, and your people can suffer the consequences, or you can take my hand and we can build something new together." Stared at her hand like it was a poisonous snake. "You would spare me after everything. We didn't come here for revenge, Admiral. Told you the truth. We came for recognition, for equality." Kept her hand extended. "You've ruled the galaxy for 12,000 years. Maybe it's time to try something different. Maybe it's time to stop being conquerors and start being partners." Outside, the battle continued to rage, but in the throne room there was only silence. Looked at the human woman standing before him. She was small, weak, short-lived by every measure he knew. She was inferior to him, and yet she had done what no one had done in 12,000 years. She had brought the Empire to its knees. She had fought her way to his throne room. She had held his life in her hands, and she had chosen mercy. Slowly, the ancient emperor let his sword fall to the ground. Slowly, he reached out and took her hand. "You are a Strange people, he whispered. Yes. Said we are. The war ended that day. Treaty of was signed 1 month later. Humanity became a founding member of the new Galactic Confederation. A union of equals, not a hierarchy of masters and slaves. The freed species took their places beside their former captors. Empire did not fall, it evolved. Admiral retired to a quiet colony world. He spent his remaining years watching sunsets and writing letters to the families of those who had died under his command. He never forgot them, not one. Captain became an ambassador. She spent decades traveling the galaxy, helping former enemies become friends. Photograph of her grandmother stayed in her pocket until the day she died. Officer X returned to his people. He became a teacher, telling young about the humans who could have destroyed them and chose not to. His students always ask the same question: why did they spare us? Because that is who they are, he would answer. They are not kind because they are weak. They are kind because they are strong enough to afford it. 300 years later, a historian wrote the definitive account of the human war. The book ended with words that would be remembered for: we sent our fleet to Sol's system expecting primitives. We found warriors. We demanded their surrender. They refused. We tried to enslave them. They defeated us. We prepared to die. They offered us their hand. That was the startling response of humanity, not their weapons, though those were fearsome, not their numbers, though those were many, not even their courage, though that was boundless. No, what startled us most was this: they could have become conquerors. They chose to become liberators instead. They could have taken revenge. They offered partnership. They could have made us kneel. They asked us to stand beside them. We asked the humans to kneel. Their response startled us, not because they refused, but because they asked us to stand beside them instead. That was the day the galaxy changed forever. In the end, humanity's greatest weapon was not a fleet of ships or a new technology. It was something far more powerful, far more dangerous, far more startling. It was hope.